Have you ever wondered what is this inner peace, the inner self, or how to live a life with spiritual meaning, of whom to even ask these questions? Well, you'll need someone wiser than me to answer, but I can tell you a story. Once upon a time, long ago, there lived a rich man. He was good. He gave money to charity and put his name forward for all sorts of good causes. He was blessed with a loving wife and a son who was the most important thing in the world to him. And as is the way of the world, the son soon grew to be a teenager and began to ask his father all sorts of difficult questions. Dad, you say you are a good man and give money to charity, so are you buying your stairway to heaven? I am a good man and I do my bit. Stop asking me all these questions and just go away, run along, I'm busy. But he didn't. The boy kept on and on asking his questions. Dad, I've looked, and the money you give to charity is just a tiny amount of your overall wealth. How can you still say you are good? I've told you before, I'm busy. You're making me cross. Stop asking these difficult questions and go away. But he didn't. The boy kept on and on. Dad, why don't you ever give away anything that's important? You've made me angry now, just go to hell. And that's exactly what happened. And Nachiketus, for that was the boy's name, found himself at the gates of hell, in the abode of the grim reaper. Luckily, there was no one at home, so Nachiketus sat down to wait. There was nothing else for him to do anyway. And as he waited, he began to realize that he was about to meet a most powerful being. And he began to think that he might have an opportunity to ask some of these questions that were bothering him. And as you can imagine, as night fell, the boy didn't get much sleep. As he continued to wait through the second day, he began to formulate the questions he might get an opportunity to ask the Lord of Death. And he continued to think and wait all through the second day and through the second night, through the third day and the third night. And it wasn't until the morning of the fourth day that the grim reaper himself appeared. And Nachiketus had had time to prepare for this moment, so he thought he would try flattery. Oh, greetings, most powerful Lord of Death. And as that seemed to work quite well, he returned to his normal cheeky self. I have been waiting now for 3 days and 3 nights with nothing to eat or drink or sit down on. How do you call yourself a powerful being when that's the way you greet your guests? And the grim reaper replied, I am amused by your courage. And to atone for the 3 days and 3 nights you have had to wait, I will grant you 3 wishes. What is your first wish? And the boy wished to return to his family and for everything to be all right between his father and himself once more. And the Grim Reaper granted his wish and asked, "And what is your second wish?" For my second wish, I would like to know how to live a spiritual life, for I have heard that that is the path to heaven, and in heaven there is no fear, no hunger, no thirst, and all is filled with joy and happiness. And the Lord of Death replied, "There are 3 tasks for a spiritual life. The first task is to study your holy writings, your scriptures, and the spiritual texts. The second task is to live according to those guidance, to pray, to worship, to meditate, and to follow the moral guidance outlined in your holy writings. And the third task is to look after the world and the fellow creatures within it. So to give money, to give your time, to give friendship, and to give kindness. And these 3 tasks together, if performed with the correct intention, will lead you on a spiritual path and to heaven." What is your third wish? And for my third wish, I would like to know about my inner self, my inner peace. And the Grim Reaper replied, "Oh, this is hard knowledge, difficult knowledge to explain. Ask me for anything else. I am powerful. I can grant you all sorts of material wealth. A big house, a new car, friends, fashionable clothes, fame, any wealth you can consider. Just ask me these. But don't ask me about your inner self, and release me from my original promise." And the boy said, "I know about material wealth, for I have seen it, and know that it only brings fleeting happiness. It is the inner peace that I wish to know about." And eventually the Lord of Death replied, and he answered Nakakita's question. And as you can imagine, this isn't easy to explain. So I'm going to read to you from the Upanishads. The answer the Lord of Death gave. And as I read, I'm just going to move the camera over to the pond. The joy of the spirit ever abides, but not what seems pleasant to the senses. Perennial joy or passing pleasure, this is the choice one is to make always. Those who are wise recognize this, but not the ignorant. The first welcome what leads to abiding joy, though painful at the time. the latter run goaded by their senses after what seems immediate pleasure. It is but few who hear about the self, fewer still dedicate their lives to its realization. Wonderful is the one who speaks about the self. Rare are they who make it the supreme goal of their lives. Blessed are they who attain to self-realization. The wise, realizing through meditation the timeless self, beyond all perception, hidden in the cave of the heart, leave pain and pleasure far behind. Those who know they are neither body nor mind, but the immemorial self, the divine principle of existence, find the source of all joy and live in joy abiding. Hidden in the heart of every creature exists the self, subtler than the subtlest, greater than the greatest. They go beyond all sorrow, who extinguish their self-will and behold the glory of the self through the grace of the Lord of love. The self is the sun shining in the sky, the wind blowing in space. He is the fire at the altar, and in the home the guest. He dwells in human beings, in gods, in truth, and in the vast firmament. He is the fish born in water, the plant growing in the earth, the river flowing down from the mountain, for this self is supreme. The adorable one who is seated in the heart rules the breath of life. Unto him all the senses pay their homage. When the dweller in the body breaks out in freedom from the bonds of flesh, what remains? For this self is supreme. We live not by the breath that flows in and flows out, but by him who causes the breath to flow in and flow out. He is formless and can never be seen with these two eyes, but he reveals himself in the heart, made pure through meditation and sense restraint. When the five senses are stilled, when the mind is stilled, when the intellect is stilled, that is called the highest state by the wise. They say yoga is this complete stillness in which one enters the unitive state, never to become separate again. The unitive state cannot be attained through words or thoughts or through the eye. There are two selves, the separate ego and the indivisible Atman. When one rises above I and me and mine, the Atman is revealed as one's real self. When all desires that surge in the heart are renounced, the mortal becomes immortal. When all the knots that strangle the heart are loosened, the mortal becomes immortal. This sums up the teaching of the scriptures. The Lord of love, not larger than the thumb, is ever enshrined in the hearts of all. And thus, Nakikita received his 3 wishes and eventually returned home to the loving arms of his family, to live with wisdom and peace, happily and joyfully ever after. The end. And obviously I didn't make that story up, it is a very old story. And I didn't even read all of the reply in this book. And if you would like me to read a bit more of the answer and some other writings from the Upanishads, please let me know and I'll read some more. I do think they're very interesting. It's quite difficult knowledge to acquire. I also thought that they might make quite nice bedtime stories or bedtime listening. So just let me know if you'd like any more of these readings. Okay, thank you. Shanti. Peace. And excuse the pigeons. I don't know what they're up